very good, but Governor, you were the poster boy for a lot of this stuff. I see today the Trump administration they talked about, I don't know if this is true, but they talked about the fact that California had a rule that schools cannot be required to notify parents if their kids in school have changed their gender.
Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear California's in a state of turmoil. And I ask my fellow Angelenos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office?
The golden boy of California has had his shine stolen, and Mel Gibson and Bill Maher are the ones responsible. When taken as a whole, they have transformed Gavin Newsom's polished political persona into a Hollywood horror movie, exposing the mayhem beneath the expensive suits and smart speeches. This wasn't just a roast, it was a demolition project, complete with defunct policies masquerading as progress and photo ops that conceal collapsing realities. It wasn't only exposure for Newsom. He was left standing amid the debris.
Things running and being the guy. I do, because that means he can get elected. Do I also think that if he got elected, he would be a good president? I do. Generally moving the country in the right direction. I would like to take him back a little toward the middle, but, you know.
Based on what, though? Based on what?
Since he's been in, whatever you call it, office, has brought us nothing but rampant crime, acute homelessness, horrendous inflation. He's made it untenable for people to make a living here.
Seeing Gavin Newsom as the political equivalent of an Instagram influencer, Bill Maher launches the first attack. Nothing except filters. That hair appears to have had insurance for longer than the majority of California residences. Additionally, the man's unwavering smile could help you sell your oceanfront home in the Mojave Desert. Maher doesn't even have to look closely. The roast is the focal point of Newsom's aesthetic. He resembles the glossy magazine cover with blank pages.
We're talking about their parents. How can you snitch? The idea of a snitch and a parent.
Following this, Mel Gibson rips into the same picture from a new perspective. He sees Newsom as more than a politician, a caricature of one he is. When a movie's smooth villain is introduced in the first 10 minutes, you know right away that you can't trust him, yet you still wait to see him fail. As if he were treading a red carpet, the man makes his way through California and enters a burning structure, while feigning that the flames are merely ambient lights.
Destructive decision-making masquerading as leadership are we going to tolerate? It's time to take back our community and our state and put the power and the privilege in the hands of competent leaders whose goals are to protect us and the way of life this nation was founded upon and promises to offer. That's all.
The hypocrisy blade is then sharpened by Maher's discussion of the French Laundry affair. Fine dining for the governor, lockdowns for the rest of the population. It's the sort of stunt that leaves people wondering whether their leader is signing the rules between dessert courses or truly reading them. It is impossible to advocate for sacrifice while sipping a $500 bottle of wine in front of lobbyists, so Maher would cut right through the PR gimmick.
I appreciate that. I was on KBLA yesterday, with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, who do you want to run for president? I mentioned, I think you'd be good at the job. Not this year, we know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state.
Gibson illustrates the same hypocrisy in a more sinister way. That supper wasn't only a mistake in his eyes, it was the equivalent of hosting champagne parties while standing on a balcony during a flood in terms of politics. The part of Newsom that never anticipates consequences was revealed. Even when the story is a complete failure, the Hollywood conceit is that the camera will always capture his positive aspects. Maher attacks Newsom for seeing public safety as an optional component of a utopian experiment as he turns his attention to California's crime epidemic. The ridiculousness of seeing a state legitimize smash-and-grab thefts while claiming it's all simply transient instability is more important than numbers when it comes to Maher's delivery. A place where the police are essentially Yelp reviewers for crime scenes is impossible to manage.
He's been in, whatever you call it, office, has brought us nothing but rampant crime, acute homelessness, horrendous inflation. He's made it untenable.
And in 2019, I think Newsom said, I'm going to take care of the forests and maintain the forests and do all that kind of stuff. He didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything. And then on top of that, they cut the water off.
Gibson has an instinct for criminality. Scorched earth without sarcasm. And not only the rich avoid paying taxes, middle-class families are fleeing before the rent increases become ransom demands.
The wind part. Yes, fire is a tough fight out here, and yes, global warming absolutely makes it worse. But that's largely out of our control. What are we going to do, pass a ballot measure to make sure Chinese stop burning coal? It's also, yes, undeniably true that LA is built in a stupid place to build a city.
With CEOs boarding moving trucks and families escaping past boarded-up businesses like in a disaster film, Gibson creates a dramatic atmosphere. California under Newsom appears to be a utopia, but the storyline is tragic. In his battle against homelessness, Maher exposes the billions of dollars lost while tents grow like uncontrollable pop-ups. More publicity than answers. It costs taxpayers a fortune, and Gibson refers to it as compassion as performance art. When the grid can't handle a warm afternoon, Maher then mocks Newsom's green campaign, which calls for a 2035 ban on gas-powered vehicles. Being a leader in climate change is admirable, but not when your initiatives are like adding a skylight to a submarine.
Were you able to get possessions that, of course, are really immaterial when you have your family, but I've been to your house. It was an incredible home, beautiful home. But were you able to get anything out of your house?
Not much. A few necessary things. You know, my son I said, just go and grab this and this and this. And he grabbed like 3 things and took off. And then, you know, those are okay. Stuff like passports and a couple of papers and stuff like that. But by and large, everything was just, it looked, when I got there the other day, I went up there yesterday, it looked like Dresden, you know, after Bomber Harris got.
As cities burn and ghost towns caused by blackouts, Gibson criticizes Newsom's leadership style as being fixated on solar panel photo shoots. California makes a lot of noise about protecting the environment, but he would suggest that we start by keeping the lights on. Maher ridicules the idea of leading the nation when your own state continues to lose citizens, businesses, and essential operations by tearing at the conceit and presidential desire that permeate every speech. It's leadership that sounds fantastic in speeches but falls apart like wet cardboard in practice. Gibson retorts with frank contempt.
Probably went for Gavin's hair gel. I don't know, but it's like, you know, it's sad. It's like the place is just on fire.
Well, the whole state is just so poorly managed. It's so frustrating and confusing. And then he gets on TV and pretends like everything's great. Mm-hmm. And California's the best. We have the best state. We have the most amazing economy.
Gibson compares Newsom's management style to that of an aesthetics-obsessed filmmaker. Ideal frame, empty content, phony cheers, and early departures of critics. Maher attacks school spending, making fun of a system that wastes money while producing burnt toast outcomes. He returns to Newsom's public relations machine, which is all beaches and festivals with off-camera scenes of crime, blackouts, and tent cities. Gibson cuts through the sheen, describing it as simple propaganda. If the image is damaged, don't bother polishing the frame. The shine will simply highlight the rot.
Yeah, well, one always suspects that this might happen, but one thinks that the resources, you know, and the capabilities of the men and women will be on standby, that they'll be able to cope with any situation that comes up. But apparently, some people were asleep on the job, mainly our leaders there. But, you know, that's something they have to leave.
Maher ends with a striking image. Newsom on a sinking ship, still posing for cameras as people escape in lifeboats. A TED Talk-worthy sense of optimism as the iceberg tears through the ship's hull. Newsom is portrayed by Gibson as the glitzy poster for a blockbuster that was never made. High budget, loud hype, and a nonsensical plot that leaves nothing but rubble at the end of the credits. Maher returns to the topic of housing, criticizing Newsom for policies that do not work for working families. Gibson describes it as cruelty in a suit. Families confined to storage units while politicians, lobbyists, and developers eat, and the populace is left with scraps.
Finally, new rule. We may not be able to do much about the weather, but we do need a better plan for putting out a burning city than waiting for rain. America is so partisan now that even when there's a disaster of any kind, so many people choose to defend their own team, even over death. A lot of Democrats in this one-party state this week went right to, don't blame politicians, you can't do anything about the wind.
When the number of eviction notifications exceeds the number of building permits, the lectures about housing fairness seem pointless. Maher switches his focus to drought management, criticizing Newsom for using water restrictions as a show of virtue, with wealthy properties watering gardens like Versailles, while regular Californians let their lawns wither. He sarcastically reveals the hypocrisy, pointing out that selective enforcement and photo ops are the lifeblood of policy. By depicting California as a kingdom where peasants ration water while castle fountains run, and the king grinned about sacrifice while sipping imported sparkling water, Gibson goes one step farther. Maher then delves into the topic of taxation, claiming that California has mastered charging more for less when it comes to crime spirals, roads that look like lunar craters, and failing schools. Taxation has become performance art, he jokes. The show never changes, but the people keep paying.
No, it's stuff like there's a new law in this. I think we have way too many regulations and laws, as we've talked about. And this one, I think, says if you're a department store with over 500 employees, you have to have a gender-neutral toy department.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, I get it.
So you think that's
it's
silly? You think that's a silly thing? That
What was
we
interesting-
too much government there.
That's an interesting one because the department stores came to us.
Instead of viewing California's taxes as a policy, Gibson views them as a scam, a daylight robbery disguised as press releases. People are working two jobs, businesses are going bankrupt, and the state continues to act like it's broke. This is a cartel with superior stationery, not governance, in his opinion. Turning to the healthcare industry, Maher makes fun of a state that promotes inclusivity, while hospital wait times are like endurance sports. Newsom brags about increased access, but bureaucracy turns basic care into a maze. Then, while half the state is being consumed by wildfires, Maher disparages environmental policies once more by outlawing plastic straws. The most ridiculous form of virtue signaling is when thousands of people are forced from their homes by avoidable tragedies and stories about straws are made.
Oh, I know they were messing with the water, letting reserves go for one reason or another. They've been doing that a while. California has a lot of problems that sort of baffle the mind as far as why they do things. And then in the events like this, you sort of look, oh, is it on purpose? Which it's an insane thing to think. But one begins to ponder whether or not there is a purpose in mind. What could it be? I don't know. Do they want the state empty? I don't know.
Well, now
Gibson adds darkness by drawing a comparison between California's wildfire season and an annual horror film, which follows the same plot line of grandiose statements, unfulfilled promises, and smoking ruins. Newsom is the producer ensuring that the sequel funding never runs out, not the hero battling fire. In his opinion, Maher returns to business, mocking the irony that California is displacing tech titans but maintaining its reputation as the innovation capital. Silicon Valley's birthplace is now seeing its talent migrate to Florida, Texas, or Nevada. Gibson gives that picture grit, and Maher turns to energy expenses, making a joke about how running your air conditioner feels like a luxury purchase under Newsom. The ridiculousness of a state pushing electric everything while electricity costs are so expensive that they require their own mortgage broker is ridiculed by him.
Friends with Newsom.
Yeah.
We live here, right?
Oh,
we
yes.
live in California. I was born here. In Oakland, they have Kaiser Hospital, where my pediatrician was. The hospital put out a notice last week, employees are not to leave for lunch. It's too dangerous.
Right.
In downtown Oakland. That's on him. Our homeless I don't want to hear that the homeless problem is intractable. You want to be CEO? It's your problem. It's your desk.
Yeah.
I know you like it, but I just think I can't imagine him having the gall to run to lead this country when he's.
Gibson demands that California pay its skyrocketing energy prices or face living in the 1800s. Despite its good intentions, clean energy feels like a shakedown masquerading as advancement under Newsom. Maher switches his focus to transportation, making fun of high-speed rail projects that go slower than a DMV queue despite burning billions of dollars. Since California has been promoting their bullet train for so long, the rest of the nation may complete theirs twice before the first track is installed. According to Gibson, it is the epitome of state politics, costly, ostentatious, postponed, and disengaged from the people who are paying for it, a monument to unrealized potential. Maher then makes fun of Newsom's fixation on his national image by likening him to a student who decorates his graduation cap prior to passing tests. Gibson hits home accusing his out-of-state appearances of desertion of duty, demonstrating that his focus is on the office and the camera lens rather than Californians.
Probably went for Gavin's hair gel. I don't know, but it's like, it's sad. It's like the place is just on fire.
Well, the whole state is just so poorly managed. It's so frustrating and confusing. And then he gets on TV and pretends like everything's great. And California's the best. We have the best state. We have the most amazing economy.
Focusing on corruption, Maher makes fun of California's close relationships between lobbyists and politicians, where reform is merely a bedtime tale. The commercials are funded by the same individuals who write the legislation, so change is essentially just billboard text. As the city deteriorates, Gibson depicts it as if it were a noir movie, with shadowy suits exchanging envelopes over cocktails. He sees Newsom as one of the machine's smoothest gears and not as something outside of it. The homelessness situation is then criticized by Maher, who claims that more funding just makes it worse because finding a solution would eliminate a profitable political talking point. It's pure moral bankruptcy, he claims, and Newsom treats it like a renewable resource. Maher imagines Newsom on a presidential stage, pitching California as a shining example while it burns as a cautionary story for the comedy kill. People in the audience would wince and chuckle.